What if it rained food? What if Earth was a cube? What if we had 9 lives? What if bits could fly? It's absurd. If money grew on trees, if we didn't have knees, if we walked through life slightly magnetical, it's absurd. Absurd Hypotheticals.
Hello everybody and welcome to Absurd Hypotheticals, the show where we overthink dumb questions so you don't have to. I'm your host Marcus Lehner, and I'm joined here today by Chris Yee and Ben Storms. Say hi, guys.
Hey, I'm Chris.
Hey, I'm Ben.
Guys, we have made it through another year of podcasting, and it brings us to our year-end special episode, which you may notice is not titled like our previous years.
No more award show.
No more self-given award show for our yearly questions. So what we've done in the past is, at the end of the year, we would look back at all the questions that we did that year and give out awards for, most deadly, hardest math, stuff like that, and kind of do a victory lap around the previous questions that we did, which is all fun and good for, I think, us, and probably less fun and good and exciting for anyone who's not enfranchised enough to have listened to our entire year of episodes. So we decided we're going to do something try something different this year. Still calling back to the questions of the year past, but instead of just saying what we did, take them and do something new with them in what we're calling our 2020 year-end remix.
Marcus was very insistent on including that year-end in that.
I was. You need it. 2020 remix just sounds like nothing. It's nothing.
Yeah, I guess.
You can hear us argue about it in the behind-the-scenes episodes if you really want to get our thoughts on what we're calling this thing. We did debate it for a while.
I think we debated it on multiple
for
episodes,
like 20
actually.
minutes or something.
Yeah.
And I still think it should be called the 2020 Super Collider, but whatever. Anyway, the way it works is we've all taken multiple hypothetical questions and combined them into one hypothetical. So one world where multiple of our previous hypotheticals are happening simultaneously. So basically, as we go through, we're going to be up in the stakes. So Ben, you're going to be going first. You combined 2 questions. Chris, you then did 3. And me, I did 4 different hypotheticals, all happening at the same time into one answer. So it's going to get a bit wild, and I'm really excited for it. I had a lot of fun doing mine, so I'm excited to hear what you guys came up with. Ben, tell us what questions you did and then how that went for you.
Sure. So I had 2 questions. I did our question from episode 86, which was, how would you steal the Mona Lisa? And our question from episode 95, which was, which museum would win in a fight? Now, that's going to require some explanation in case you haven't heard that episode. What we did for that episode was basically each pick a museum and say that everything inside of it came to life, Night at the Museum style, and then fought, right? So the way I combine this is basically, how do I steal the Mona Lisa if everything that's in the Louvre has come to life and is protecting it?
Yes.
I thought that was fun. That was going to be a fun idea. So our first thing to figure out here is obviously just, what are we dealing with? What's our opposition? What do we have to actually, take down? And really, all you really have to care about is sculpture. Fortunately for us, the Louvre is mostly paintings. A lot of it is paintings, which I think what we said at the time was that they kind of like Harry Potter style, come to life in their frames, but that's not going to be too much of a barrier for you. They're still stuck in their frames and everything. And so really we're doing the sculpture. And fortunately, unlike what happened in the actual episode, which was the Guggenheim ran away with it because it had all these weird modern art, like giant metal monster bullshit. The sculpture in the Louvre is mostly medieval French, which keeps it much more constrained to reality for the most part, but does lead to a different problem, which is that medieval French artists really liked Catholicism, and specifically they really liked the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus.
Oh my.
So there's a lot of more generic stuff. There are some animals and a lot of just like some weird like random torsos and heads and stuff that we don't have to care about too much, but we do have 29 combination Virgin Mary and baby Jesuses, 8 solo Virgin Marys, 1 solo baby Jesus, and then 8 adult Jesuses.
So 30 Virgin Marys, 30 baby Jesuses, and 8 big Jesuses.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. We also have 22 saints, and I thought we had some individual apostles as well. Maybe all those got rolled up into the saints as well.
Do you think it's easier or harder to be the 29th Virgin Mary Jesus exhibit that gets picked up by the Louvre?
I mean, you got things at least, like...
Is it like, oh yeah, we've got a collection going, sure, what difference does one more make? Or is it, we've already got 28 of these, do we need a 29th?
I like the idea that there's just some wonderful new sculpture of the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus that gets, discovered. And the Louvre was like, oh, we already got a lot of them. Like...
You're just like... is it going to really bring anyone else in if we add our 30th?
Yeah. Like, maybe, Luke, do you have, like, a hoarding problem, Luke? Like, no one needs 29 Virgin Marys and baby Jesuses.
It took us forever just to magically lay out the room for the number 29.
Right. So we got that to deal with. But then we do have one other problem, which is they also did enjoy Greek and Roman mythology. So we have a lot of Greek and Roman mythology as well. We have, multiple Hercules, we have a Vulcan, a Neptune, multiple Minervas, Mars, the god of war, just a lot of Greek/Roman gods as well, who are also going to be quite a problem because those guys are powerful and, annoying.
Do you count them as having their godly powers when they come to life?
I would say so. I think they have...
I would say so.
Yeah, I think that's only fair. Otherwise, it's just a, big marble dude. Yeah. So, this is problematic, obviously. And it quickly blew away my original plan was to find a wax museum, because somehow none of us did that last time. I was all excited. The Madame Tussauds in London has Usain Bolt, and I really wanted to just have him, run out with the Mona Lisa.
Oh, so you're getting a different museum to fight these?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I figured, right?
That's logical. I guess I didn't think about that.
I need to get a team, I can't do this on my own. I'm going up against gods, both mythological and, Christianity. Right. So I need a team. But that plan was just not going to work. There's just no way. Which I was very excited about. I wanted to try to, my original plan actually with the Madame Tussauds stuff was to figure out if any of them had all of the cast of Ocean's 11. But once again, as great as Danny Ocean and the team is, not going to work against literal gods.
It's just like, the hell, man, there's 3 Hercules in here.
I took a step back and I thought, okay, so how do we deal with these particular problems? And I realized that to deal with the various Jesuses and saints and apostles and whatnot, there was one clear option, and that is Judas. So I did find there is there had to be more, but in all of my research, I can only find one actual sculpture of Judas, which can't be right. There has to be more. This is a very important moment in, classical culture. I don't know. There has to be more, but I can only find one, which is the Kiss of Judas, which is a German sculpture that's currently at the Met. So we have a Judas, and I'm just going to go ahead and say that one Judas can pretty much bring down all of the Christianity side, because that's kind of how it went.
Just 38 Jesuses in a row going, oh man, I didn't see this coming.
Right. You'd think that at a certain point they catch on, and yet here we are.
It's just Judas in the back of a quickly shortening Congo line of Jesus.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Just go down the line and take them down one by one. So I think that our one Judas can take care of this problem for us of having so many Jesuses. And then really, like I said, there's some wild animals and stuff, but nothing too bad. Our other real problem to deal with is going to be just all these Greek and Roman gods. And as far as I can tell, they're gods. We're not going to be able to kill them or anything. So I think we have to just steal the Mona Lisa out from under them. And fortunately, we have a way to do this, because there is, as you may know, very famously, a story about this, which is Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods. And conveniently, I have found 5 different statues of Prometheus in various locations to pull together. I decided, by the way, I tried to find one museum that had both Judas and Prometheus. Could not. As far as I can tell, it does not exist. But I figured we're all going to the Louvre. I can just bring them all with me. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Where's the sleazebag historical figures museum?
Right?
All the-
Seriously.
Well, if they'd be anywhere, they'd probably be in the Louvre. If
Yeah, I know.
If there
They
was
also,
one museum.
yeah, there probably is somewhere that has statues of both, but the like various collection searching things I was using were not sufficient to find it. But regardless, we're gonna make it work, and this way we get 5 Prometheuses to improve our odds. So we're gonna collect all Prometheuses. Promethees? I don't know. What's the plural of Prometheus?
Promethei.
the proper nouns are probably Prometheuses.
That's just hard to say, and I don't like it. Anyway, Prometheuses together, send them all in. And you may be asking, but wait, Prometheus is like this titan. How is he going to find his way around the Louvre? This is where I ask you guys. Do you know what they use for the like guides at the Louvre?
No.
I went to the Louvre once, and it was like 15 or 20 years ago.
So it was not within the last 8 years, because 8 years ago, the Louvre switched to using, and I am not making this up, Nintendo 3DS XLs to do the guide at the Louvre.
Huh.
What?
So if you go to the Louvre and you want to rent a guide, they literally rent you a 3DS.
They have that many of them?
Yes, apparently they had some partnership with Nintendo. They made like a, cartridge for it that is a Louvre guide. The ones that they give you at the Louvre, the actual 3DSs, only work with that cartridge, nothing else. So people don't like steal them. I'm sure people probably have anyway, but
Yeah, who needs
Maybe
some
it's just to keep
Mona
the maybe they just got them all because to keep the 30 baby Jesuses busy all the time. 'cause
You're
the Virgin
right.
Marys
There
were
you
all
go.
tired of dealing with their crap.
But yeah, and apparently if you go to the Louvre now, it's just like people walking around with DSs, which just seems so wrong to me. I don't know.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
like
that's
what?
weird.
Like how I really want to be in the meeting where this happened, like where this decision was made. I don't know. Anyway, you can also apparently like download the Louvre guide on the 3DS eShop as well if you want to check it out. I don't know. It's all very strange to me, but
That makes me want to go to the Louvre more.
I mean, I think that was probably the idea, but I guess it works. Who knows? Like,
I can just imagine like booking a trip to the Louvre and be like, guys, there's something so great about it. Guys, so excited for it. And then like we get the 3DS guide and I'm like, see, it's crazy. And everyone else is just like,
yes, all we gotta do is hook our 5 Prometheuses up with 3DSs. They got a map. It's all in there. Apparently, it even like tracks your location in the Louvre. So if they get lost, they just look down on the 3DS. There they go. Get right to the Mona Lisa, steal it out from under all those Greek gods, and we're free and clear. That's all it takes. Just that easy. Why didn't I think about that the first time?
So they didn't upgrade to the Switch?
They did not. I mean, to be fair, they only just discontinued the 3DS, I think, this year, so they got time.
Or the Switch Lite?
Maybe. Who knows? Someday. I think the 2 screens are a draw, though, because you're going to have like the map down the bottom and then like a piece of art on the top or something. You need the 2 screens.
Is there anything about Prometheus that makes him particularly good at stealing? That he got the fire, or is he just like, nah? I just know how gods think.
I feel like
I
know
was
at one
looking
point.
through that. I don't actually know.
I used to know Greek mythology.
Yeah, I did
and now
too.
I don't.
That's okay. I was just curious if he was like, oh, also he turns invisible or something, which would be cool.
I mean, I know he did eventually get tortured by an eagle, I want to say. Wasn't that his torture? It was like they had an eagle eat his guts forever or something?
Something like that. I know Zeus.
Sounds like
it was like Zeus.
sounds
forever
like
tortured
Zeus.
him or something.
Yeah, sounds like Zeus. Anyway, that's what I got. I stole the Mona Lisa with Prometheus. It works. Hey, Chris, what'd you do?
So I covered 3 questions. So first question I covered was how would you improve bowling from episode 101? And then I covered what if everyone was a sphere from episode 98. I think you can see where that's going.
Yep. I'm like, got it.
And third question is what if you were always drunk from episode 89?
All right, that's enough. I got it. I'm good.
Yep. I'm done. You already know what my answer is. So my answer for what if you're always drunk, I kind of covered a whole bunch of health problems and stuff because that was like the main thing. If you're always drunk, you have a lot of health problems. So you like overeat and you have bad sleep quality and stuff. You have problems with your liver, your pancreas, your kidneys, your stomach. The list goes on. I want to ignore all those and focus on the fun part of being drunk. So I mainly focus on Well, the focus of my answer was like decision making and inhibited motor skills. So decision making, they did scientific studies on this. I covered the Iowa gambling tasks in that episode. And then obviously if you're drunk, you have inhibited motor skills. So those were like the two other things I focused on in that answer. And then I also said that occasionally you'll have a good idea, like one or two good ideas. I came up with a couple examples, and the first one was the song In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, which was supposed to be in the Garden of Eden, but he was drunk and he said In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida. And the second one was the famed Benjamin Franklin's Milk Punch, which we ended up not ever drinking, unfortunately.
Thank God. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, I forgot we're never gonna do that.
We almost did, and then we didn't. But my good idea, obviously, if I am a sphere and I want to bowl, is that I'm going to roll myself down the bowling lane. So I think this was already an improvement to bowling. I don't really think we need to make other changes to bowling to improve it. But the problem is I'm drunk, and rolling when I'm drunk is not the best idea, especially because rolling, you get dizzy in the first place. That was actually part of my what if everyone is a sphere answer, is that the outcome was that you're dizzy and that there's like no way to combat that other than just get used to it. That was basically my solution to being dizzy, because that's like what dancers and ice skaters do. They just do it a lot until they get used to it. It's not really going to work if we're drunk though, because everything's just going to be a lot worse. And spinning or rolling when drunk, I didn't think was a good idea. So I wanted to see, like, is there a way I can like mitigate this or something so that I can roll down the bowling lane? So I wanted to see if like dizziness from being drunk is from the same mechanism as spinning. I wasn't sure. So I looked into that. And just to recap, the cause of dizziness from spinning, I covered it in episode 98, is due to the vestibular, is that how you say it? Vestibular?
Yeah, vestibular sounds right.
Vestibular system.
Vestibular.
Vestibular? I don't know. I probably struggle with that in episode 98 as well. But it's a system in your inner ear. So your inner ear has like fluids that move around, and then you have sensors that sense the motion of that fluid. And you feel dizzy because of the inertial effects on that fluid. So if you spin for a long time, then that fluid starts spinning. And then if you stop spinning, that fluid keeps on spinning for a while. So it still thinks you're spinning even though you aren't. And that's why you feel dizzy. Now, drunken dizziness is a little different. So normally you have a structure in your inner ear. It's called the ampullary cupula. And this is neutrally buoyant in the fluids that are in your inner ear. Neutrally buoyant means that it doesn't sink or float. It just like stays where it is because it's the same density. And what happens when you drink alcohol is that the alcohol causes the ampullary cupula to be less dense than the fluid, which makes it float. And this means that all the gravity and rotational acceleration becomes more sensitive to your inner ear. So like all the effects just become amplified. Now they call this quote unquote the spins. It has really nothing to do with spinning, but it does amplify the effects of dizziness from spinning. And there are some ways to reduce the effects of this. So people say that you can, like, the best thing to do is ground your senses with touch and sight. So they recommend like touching something stationary or staring at something stationary. And that should help mitigate the dizziness. That doesn't really help us because we need to be rolling. So we can't touch something stationary or stare at something stationary when we're rolling. And then like the rest of the advice is just to like reduce the effects of drunkenness by like eating stuff or like drinking less. Also doesn't really help us because we are just constantly drunk. We can't reduce our drunkenness.
I always love when there's like an advice column for like, how do I reduce the dizziness getting drunk? It's like, don't get drunk. It's like, that's not really the question I was asking.
Right.
It's like, yes, I agree that would work, but that's not really what my situation is here.
Well, in real life it could work just not getting drunk, but in this we cannot not get drunk. We are always drunk. So there really is no way to fight the dizziness. I think it's kind of a lost cause to fight it. So my idea was just to embrace it. So we are drunk. We get dizzy very easily. We make bad decisions. We're also a sphere. And in order to incorporate the bad decision making and dizziness into the bowling, I wanted to start you out in like the middle of, so like you start out in the middle of something and there are 10 bowling lanes surrounding you, like radiating outwards from you. And at the end of each lane, there are 10 pins, like a full set of 10 pins. And the pins don't reset whenever they're knocked down. So it's like, those are your 10 frames. And you start each frame by spinning for like 10 to 15 seconds, just long enough to get dizzy. And then when you stop spinning, you have to choose which lane you want to roll down.
Oh, Jesus.
While you're dizzy. Now, I took away the gutters because I feel like this is already hard enough without gutters.
Then what are you going to throw up in?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was gonna add a drain to the gutters.
Fine, you can have the gutters still. But you put up bumpers and then like your vomit.
Yeah, bumpers are good.
Yeah.
Gutters are still good as just,
waste disposal.
Yeah.
And then the challenge will come from being able to choose which lane you want to roll down. And then you just roll down the lane. And it's pretty straightforward after that. And I don't know how difficult it would be. I feel like it'd still be pretty difficult because you'd be very, very, very dizzy and probably be vomiting everywhere. But I think it's an improvement.
I mean, it's definitely fun.
It's definitely different.
It's different, and I think it improves it.
I like how you went through the process of, hey, you make one good decision, and this is your good decision that you make, instead of you could have just left it at, you make poor decisions, so you're going to decide to go be a bowling ball.
No, this is a good decision.
This is a positive decision.
Yeah. So that was my answer. Marcus, what did you do?
All right. So I did 4 questions. So they are episode 103, what if everyone was 1 inch tall? Episode 105, what if you could perfectly train elephants? Episode 85, what if hammers were the only tool? And episode 125, which we just did last week, what if every house was a gingerbread house? So I put 4 different questions together, so there's a fair bit going on. So given that, I'm going to jump fairly quickly into my final answer conclusion, because there's still a decent number of problems to solve after we get there. So this is kind of a walkthrough of how I kind of selected these and put them together. So the first thing that works out well is that 1 inch tall humans are the perfect occupants for gingerbread houses. The majority of the problems that we encountered with our gingerbread houses involved scaling them up to regular human size. And we don't have to worry about any of that stuff because they're just going to stay regular gingerbread house sized. And not only that, it kind of works narratively with our hammers are the only tools. Because gingerbread houses would be a good choice of house to build because you don't really need to do anything fancy like, put screws in or anything to build a gingerbread house. You just have to, slap icing on something and push.
Apply icing with a hammer.
Or hands or whatever, You just got to get it on there. Doesn't have to be pretty.
True.
That said, we still have problems with our gingerbread house. These are actually the ones I ended up covering on the episode, which are rain and rodents. So I offered gumdrop and peppermint-based solutions to these problems in that episode. But now there's a more direct and effective solution that doesn't involve, sticky walls and stinky fences that I was putting in. And that solution is the last part of hypothetical, training the elephants. If we build our gingerbread houses on the backs of the elephant, it's going to keep us out of range of most of the pests that we're worried about. Plus, the elephant is mobile. So when it rains, the elephant can just walk into shelter somewhere and keep us out of that rain. So they're kind of working together to solve each other's problems at the moment. So let's take a pause for a moment to see what does our village on the back of the elephant's back look like. So a gingerbread house, these dimensions are from the website Peter's Articles, from peter.com.au.
Oh, Australia.
I think. Yeah, so I use Australia. Because his gingerbread house's size was perfect for us because it has 1.6 inch high walls, which is basically the equivalent of 10-foot ceiling heights. So the gingerbread would be a 4x4 inch base, 1.6 inch walls, and then the roof on top of that. So if you take a 4x4 base, you can imagine, if you imagine kind of a suburban area, your lot size for one house is probably going to be about 6 inches by 12 inches. Give yourself a little bit of a yard, a little bit of front yard, and some space between the houses. So if you have that 6-inch by 12-inch lot, means each lot is half a square foot. And then if you make a village, I added 50% on top of that for common areas, streets, sidewalks, pathways, BS. So just how big our village is basically 0.75 square feet per gingerbread house lot. Elephants are pretty big. I, of course, use the African elephant, the biggest elephant. So dimensions for the usable part of the back, I kind of just looked at dimensions of elephants and guesstimated how big the usable area is going to be, because no one was really measuring the flat part of it. So basically, the back itself is about 12 foot long till you hit the head. And then the head's is about another 4 feet long. The width of the back is about 5 foot of workable space. So that gives us a 60 square feet of living space on the elephant's back, plus the head's a bit narrower, probably about 10 square feet to work with on the head. So that's altogether 70 square feet. It gives us room for 93.33 gingerbread houses, or 93 gingerbread houses plus 1 gingerbread shed.
That's a lot.
It's like 1 inch. If you 1 inch people are very small. But this feels like a good size for a wandering elephant village. So I'm pretty happy with just the scaling of it so far. But again, like I mentioned, we're not without problems. For one thing, while we're free of most pests, because elephants are big and tall and off the ground, there are still going to be some. And I think our biggest issue is going to be birds. So if you ever see all these African documentaries and you see all these big animals, you often find there's going to be small little birds riding on their back. These are usually oxpeckers. They're a small bird that feeds on, insects and parasites that live on the backs of larger animals, including elephants sometimes. I say they're a small bird, but they're about 9 inches in length. So compared to us, it's the equivalent of a 54-foot tall bird.
It's like a dragon.
Effectively, yeah. They're going to be pretty dang dangerous to us because their beaks are pretty strong. They're actually strong enough to bite into, an elephant or an iceros or whatever they're riding. There's actually a little debate on whether their relationship with these animals is symbiotic or parasitic, because while the birds clear off parasites and pests and ticks and will warn, do warning calls if they sense predators, they'll also just straight up drink the blood of the host animal. So they'll if there's if there's a wound already with a parasite, they'll bite off the parasite, which will in turn create a wound. And so they'll drink the blood out of that wound, and that wound will then sometimes fester other parasites. So it's kind of like a returning spot for them. So it's been more recently classified as parasitic. And based on the fact that they're drinking blood, I kind of tend to agree with them. So we have all these birds, but we're smart humans, right? One of our issues, though, is that our weapons are limited to just being hammers. So basically all guns and bow and arrows and stuff, those are all tools, I consider it. So we just have hammers. So, Chris, I know when we did our hammers episode, we established that, war hammers are still technically hammers, and there's some really badass versions of hammers that you could, create and build and use. So you have a shot against these oxpeckers on that. Problem is, one of the things with hammers is that they kind of scale poorly when you're fighting big things, because part of a hammer's strength is that it's a big heavy thing you're swinging around, and when you're on the wrong scale, that advantage tends to waver. So just thinking about oxpeckers, you'll probably get away doing swarming an oxpecker, but that might not be enough for the next predator on the list, which is the cattle egret. So it's similar to the oxpecker in that it's a bird that feeds on parasites on the back of the animals. Only the cattle egret is twice the size of an oxpecker and comes in at 22 inches long, or the equivalent of a 132-foot bird.
That's like a big dragon.
Yeah, that's that's a big dragon, or a Godzilla or something. So at this point, I was like, okay, so can the elephant help us out here? Because we can train the elephant, so maybe the elephant can just keep these things off its own back. And the elephant doesn't actually have that many options. Typically, an elephant would deal with things on its back by throwing dirt, spraying water on it. It can roll on the ground or go swimming. It can't actually reach its own back. None of those things are really options for our village. Because as much as it gets rid of the bird, it'll also destroy the village. That said, I have solved it though. And it's less about fighting the giant birds and more about prevention. Because you just want to keep the birds off the elephant back. And how do you keep birds off of things? Bird spikes. So my plan is to simply take candy canes, lick them down to a sharp point, and install them like you'd see the bird spikes on a subway. You know, those little pigeon points that keep them from landing on pipes and ledges and things like that. So effectively, we have our candy cane, our gingerbread village, and just on the roofs and in between, and where the street light, whatever street lights and stuff we have going on, they're all just pointed candy canes to keep the birds off.
I was gonna say this is gonna look metal as hell, but it's gonna be made out of candy canes, so maybe not. Actually,
the question, it's gonna look sugary as hell.
Yeah, this is a dentist's worst nightmare.
It's gonna be just like weirdly like punk Wizard of Oz almost.
Yeah.
So that kind of that solves our predator problem. So the last thing I looked at here is just kind of utilities and amenities for our gingerbread village and how we're going to function as like a society on the back of an elephant. So one thing I looked at was kind of like food sources. We don't need a lot of food as 1 inch tall people. Like the amount of food you need as a smaller organism is a lot less than you would need as a big one. Like you're just more efficient volume wise. But anyway, so I was looking at like kind of like farming in that like could you raise animals and things. Of course, all the animals that we typically raise, cattle and sheep and pigs and chickens are a bit big for us. So I think you could have a bug ranch and you could capture, ants and bugs like that to have like a protein source, because ants are about the right scale for, to be about the same size as us. So providing us a meal, but not being so big that they'll just murder us all.
Have a nice tender ant steak.
Yeah, ant steaks. Or ant soup, really, because they don't really have meaty parts in the inside. And you can even like go into like bugs that are producing other helpful things like silkworms, or like you can have like, a spider web farm to kind of get extra materials. Like the houses are gingerbread, but you can use other things for, interior stuff. You can make like a silk bed if you wanted to in your house, something like that. As far as like actual farming goes, I was wondering if you could grow crops on a small enough scale to eat them. Like, could you farm on the back of an elephant? Like, you could put you can get some dirt up there and like have a plot of land, but are any plants, like, you can't grow a tomato. It's like bigger than everybody. It's not gonna be, effective. So I was looking at the smallest plants, and actually it was almost a callback back to episode 41 where we talked about plants growing as fast as bamboo. And the smallest flowering fruit is watermeal. And this is basically just pond scum. It's these green little dots that you'll see growing on the surface of water. But they're actually technically little fruits. And actually they're quite nutritious. They've been exploring, or some people have been exploring, using them as like a supplemental food source because they're really easy to grow and, they're very nutritional for their volume. So you could just have sitting water to grow watermeal, and it's about the right size for us to eat, which is great.
Pond scum is an appealing name.
Yeah. You have to make some concessions to being nasty when you're very small. And then the last one here I looked at, and I almost added this as a fifth question onto my list here, and that's power for our village, because I went and looked at hamster power, which Ben covered in episode 99. So I was going to see, could you power the village with hamsters? Would that be effective? So Ben had done the math previously. One hamster produces about 0.0017 kilowatt hours of electricity.
Per day, just to...
Yeah, per day. A house uses 30, which is thousands of times more. But when you scale down our power needs, and when you scale things like this down, I like to do it by volume tends to get you the right ratio. So we're 72 times, our house is 72 times smaller, but we're actually going to need but because we're going by volume and the way you do the units is you're going to need 72 cubed less power for a house. So instead of 30, you need 0.00008 kilowatt hours of power for one of your gingerbread houses. So breaking that all down, one hamster will produce enough power in a day to power 21 houses. So if we have 5 hamsters, we can power our whole village. And you might not even need 5, because I imagine this is based on like real houses. I imagine our gingerbread houses are going to have less electronics in them than our modern houses. Like, I feel like we're going to be using less power per house. So I kind of imagine it as just like, probably you need 2 hamsters and you could generate enough electricity to power all the homes on your elephant back. So kind of conclusion, I think the elephant village works. I didn't expect to have a functioning anything combining 4 hypotheticals, but here we are.
You just have to build all of that with hammers somehow.
Yeah, that's a little gray area.
Much like an elephant, it's a gray area.
Hey, did it.
I hate myself.
As you should, which is the perfect time then to go into the Would You Rather question. Ben, are you ready for a Would You Rather question?
Sure.
Would you rather be a cyclops or a minotaur?
Oh, back on the mythology train again. All right.
Yeah, we did some Greek gods today, so this one feels fitting.
Yeah. Cyclops or minotaur? So I just want to be clear. When you're saying being a cyclops, you mean not just having one eye, but being big ol' ogre-y dude, right? We're going full.
Yeah.
Okay.
How big are we making our cyclops?
How big is a cyclops? How big is a cyclops?
In my head, they're like 7 or 8 feet tall.
They vary a lot. So that you got like I think the standard fantasy, they're usually like a good bit taller, like 9. I would say 9 feet tall.
Okay.
Would be like the average fantasy one, but also there's the colossal ones from like Hercules and original Greek myth that are like 40 feet tall.
On the non-alien creatures wiki.fandom.com, they list 4 average heights, which isn't really how this works, guys. But they list as the average height 7.5 feet, or 12 feet, or 25 feet, or 30 feet. I guess it's different sources.
I feel like it'll be taller than 7.5.
Let's go 10 feet, because I don't want it to be, would you rather be giant or regular size to be the main,
right,
the main
yeah.
thing here.
Yeah, 10 feet's good.
I think the Cyclops is bigger than the Minotaur by a couple feet. Exactly what parts of the Minotaur are bull and which parts are human? It looks like the middle bit.
It's the middle is human, yeah. You got bull waist down and then bull head.
It's like a bell curve of humanity. where you start at the top, like the top is 100% bull, and then like it's very bull until suddenly it's all human, and then back down to the legs after the knees, it just goes back to fur and hooves.
But what are the hands?
The hands
are human hands.
When I'm
looking at pictures, and they're all bull hands.
Oh,
bulls don't have
hands.
They're all like not human.
Yeah, the one I'm looking at is definitely not human. It's bigger than human, but it's human-ish.
Like the ones I'm looking at, they have three fingers on the hands.
I think we're looking at. Is there like a weird like 8 on his chest? The one you're looking at?
Yeah, that's one of them.
Okay, that's the one I'm currently looking at.
Okay, whereas if you have 3 or 4, like we imagine, you're all a bit bulky, hairy anyway, but like you have opposable thumbs and fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
they're not hooves.
They're not hooves.
It's the
that's really the important clarification is not hooves. God, do you have to guard a labyrinth if you're a minotaur?
No, you don't have to guard
a labyrinth. I don't think so. It's just your normal life, but you're a minotaur or a cyclops.
Do you find yourself inclined to guarding labyrinths as a hobby? Like, is there like a calling there, or?
Yeah, but there's not many labyrinths around, so you haven't really, committed to it.
You just stand outside escape rooms and shit, like.
It's one of those things like where you watch someone playing, football or something. Like, man, I'd like to play some football, but you never really pursue it more than that. Like, you might have an affinity for it, but it's not part of your life.
I like the idea that like you take your minotaur friend to an escape room and he just goes nuts.
He just starts destroying the puzzle, so you can't. Like, he just starts eating the clues.
Yeah, exactly.
None shall escape.
You just hoard copies of the movie Labyrinth. So is a minotaur also taller than normal?
I think they're a little taller. They're like a tall person. They're like 7 feet tall or so.
7 feet. Okay.
Yeah, you'd be like 6'4" as a minotaur.
Yeah. I think if someone saw you as a minotaur, but you weren't clearly a bull, people might think you're a basketball player.
So the obvious downside to being a cyclops is depth perception.
Yeah. Which is also unfortunate because you're going to be tall enough, you're going to walk into a lot of like you can't, to walk through doors, you have to, duck down through them and stuff.
Yeah. You're not going to be able to judge how far the door is. You're going to run right straight into it.
Right. So that's not great.
So it'll be very clumsy.
How good is a cow's eyesight? Because maybe this is a cow.
I don't think minotaurs have typically bad eyes. Is a minotaur's eyesight
I was
good?
Trying to Google how good cow's eyesight is, and what I Googled was just cow good eyes.
Cow good eyes?
That
sounds like a bad D&D name, which is fitting because I Googled is a minotaur's eyesight good, and the first one is a D&D Reddit that says minotaurs don't get dark vision. What the heck?
Okay, so this did get me to do cows have poor eyesight on animals.mom.com.
Bulls lack red cones, apparently.
Oh, interesting. Oh wait, I think we knew that. That's a thing.
I'm gonna stop this. I'm gonna say minotaurs have decent eyesight. Like it's just normal eyesight. They're as good as your regular eyes.
Oh, so they don't have cow eyes? Because cow eyes apparently aren't great. Apparently they only have binocular vision for about a 25 to 50 degree angle in front of them. So if you're looking directly at something,
I guess that's more about position of eyes than anything else.
Yeah.
So depth perception is up to 25, 50 feet, which is still better than none.
That is true. And also when your head is down to graze, or just look down, I guess, in the situation, because you're probably not grazing. Or maybe you are. You have a cow head. Who knows? You can see almost 360 degrees. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, so vision is definitely better for cows, or for minotaurs.
Minotaur, yeah.
Do the horns help? Do the horns get you anything?
You can open cans with them.
Can you?
You just don't have many uses for like cool, sharp objects. That's the problem with bringing fantasy into real life, is that I just don't have much use for like weapons.
They would just get annoying. Like they'd hit stuff and get stuck in doorways.
You could hang a hat on them, but you could not wear a hat. I guess you could wear like a baseball cap. Kind of? Maybe not. Minotaur heads are weird. I guess cow heads are weird is the answer there, actually.
What about the feet part of it? Like, how would hooves affect your feet?
Is it a good thing?
I don't know. Are hooves really designed for like bipedal movement?
I feel
Answer
like
no.
they aren't, actually.
Answer no. It feels like they'd be good for like a sprint and bad for like balance.
Yeah, because it's like, I know your feet have a lot of, muscles and things to help compensate for balancing, and hooves clearly do not. So
you would have a tail to help you balance.
That's
you
true.
have a little bit of a tail going.
That's true.
I guess I think it might come down to like just hey, if you're trying to make friends, would you rather be a cyclops or a minotaur?
Both would be very difficult to make friends.
Yeah.
I actually think the size component comes into it a lot, because being cyclops size would be very difficult to live as.
I agree with that, yeah.
Where if you're a minotaur, you're just like a tall person, but you can still do it. There are people that tall in real life.
I also think I'd rather be friends with someone who looks like a minotaur than a cyclops. It might just be that media makes some minotaurs cool and helpful and like, basically like good like buff dads, as opposed to cyclops, which are basically exclusively stupid and evil.
Also, like, if you're a cyclops, you can't like go to a movie theater or something. You can do that as a minotaur.
True.
Yeah, your horns would still be annoying to those behind you, but a little bit less annoying than a whole shoulder breadth.
You can still do human things.
Right, yeah. You are roughly more roughly human sized than a cyclops is. I feel like being that big is just Chris is right. It's gonna be a very big issue.
You probably will smell worse.
Yeah, the fur is gonna be a downside.
Yeah. Plus side, you don't wear shoes, so when you go through airport security, you don't have to take them off.
You don't have to take them off.
Well, that solves it then.
Yep.
Yeah, it's hard for me to vocalize exactly why I'm so biased, but like I'm just looking at a bunch of pictures of minotaurs and a bunch of pictures of cyclopses, and I'm just like, every time I look at cyclops, I'm like, not for me. And I see the minotaur, I'm like, yeah, why not?
I like cows.
Yeah,
cows are cool. This is a cow man.
Cyclopses are always depicted as like kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just more off-putting to have one eye. Like if I was like talking to someone who had one central eye, as opposed to someone who had
two eyes.
Like was a cow face. Like I can talk to a cow face easier than I can talk to a one-eyed face. Like cyclops level, like giant eye.
Oh, it is a big old eye, too. I didn't really think about that. It's a very large eye. You get poked in the eye a lot by things, I think.
You definitely have to wear a goggle.
or just like one of those like visors you wear when people are like golfing.
A visor?
Yeah.
I don't think I know what you're talking about.
You know, like to keep the sun out of your eyes, you know?
How does that help getting poked in the eye?
I guess it wouldn't be poked. I was thinking like if it's like raining and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One of the hilarious things about looking at these images for Cyclops is that the X-Men Cyclops is like every like 8th or 10th image, and his photos are basically exclusively him shooting an eye laser off picture. So if you look at it all together, it looks like Cyclops is just going to try and fight a bunch of Cyclops by shooting laser at them.
That's amazing.
Like in the Google Images pages. But anyway, I think we've gone through it enough. So let's do our final decisions here. Chris, Cyclops or Minotaur?
I'm going Minotaur. More human-like. Even if they smell worse, you have depth perception and you can do human things.
I agree with Chris for basically the same reasons. Also, people like cows.
I'm not sure if I agree with human-like in that a Cyclops definitely looks more like a human. But if you're talking about practicality of functioning on size, yes, more human-like there. And kind of, yeah, I'm on the same page with what we've talked about, which is different than our usual would you rather. So,
and we've been agreeing a lot recently. Like the last 3 or 4 we've agreed.
Yeah, I guess we have, haven't we?
We've been doing this podcast too long, probably. Good thing we're going on hiatus so that we can come back fresh and disagree. Forget all the things that we've come to terms with each other on, and have some hot debates.
New grievances.
Come February. But yeah, that'll do it for that show. As I just mentioned, we are going on hiatus after this episode, so we give ourselves a little bit of time in the holidays so that we don't have to try and squeeze in recording when we're all with our families and all that type of junk. So the way podcasts work, record ahead of time. So it's the January episodes that are affected. So no new episodes that are going to be happening in January, with the exception of the Patreon behind the scenes episode. So if you want to get an episode in January, www.patreon.com/absurdhypotheticals and become a patron there. Just $1, and you get all the bonus content that we've produced for the Patreon. But yeah, other than that, guys, good year. Made it through 2020. A whole new year of episodes. Lots of fun. I like doing this combiner at the end of it. Felt like a fun way to kind of cap things off. And
yeah, this was better than the Absurdity Awards, I think.
I agree. If you disagree, leave us a comment. Or if you do agree, leave us a comment. And either way, leave us a review, because all that helps the show.
And we'll be back from hiatus on February 1st.
Yes, I should have probably said the date. Yeah, no episodes in January, but February 1st, we will be back with our first episode of 2021, and then we'll be back on our weekly release schedule for the rest of that year. And we got some good stuff planned for next year, so I'm very excited. And with that, happy 2020, everyone. We made it.
Happy New Year.